Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Glad to see all these nice faces today. Please stand in body or spirit as we sing our gathering hymn, number 170.
For the fifth verse, Holly Near, the composer, has started to use the words "we are all in this together" because it broadens the spectrum from the original words.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Hillsborough. We are a congregation that is open to all who seek spiritual growth and community with others. Whoever you are, member, friend, or guest, and whatever brought you here this morning, we're glad that you're here. As you may know already, masks are optional. Here at UUCH, we don't require that we all agree on a common set of religious beliefs. Instead, we strive to love, support, and encourage each other in our continuing individual quests for personal growth and understanding in matters of the heart and spirit. We aspire always to be an inclusive circle where all are welcome. My name is Lou Godot. I am your worship coordinator today, and I would like to thank everyone who's made today's service possible. Their time and effort are truly gifts of their love. I want to thank Aviva Enoch, our music director and leader of our worship team, for all she does. and Alan Julich and Claire Stees Julich for our special music today. I also want to thank Amy Dark for creating the order of service, AC Therington for handing it out, Steve Mahaley and Alex Omburo for managing our communications, and I would have said Tristan Zaremi to be the listening ear. He was not able to make it, and I'm filling in for him after the service. And we're also very grateful to have our own Steve Mahaley as our speaker today.
Oh,
Yay.
all done.
Before we create our sacred space, let's take a moment for the good of the community to share announcements. If you have an announcement for the congregation, please come to the side microphone, identify yourself, and speak directly into the microphone. As usual, we invite everyone to enjoy the refreshments in the back room together after the service, and to socialize with friends and guests inside or outside the building.
Good morning, I'm David Belt, Building and Grounds. Well, yesterday was Earth Day, but really it was Wet Day. So needless to say, our work party got canceled. I'd like to reschedule it, but I gotta look ahead and see what days are not gonna rain. Looks like this weekend might not be a good option, so I'll keep you advised. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shauna Saunders. I just wanted to thank the 5 adults who have signed up to be a secret pal. You will be getting a getting to know me form that your secret pal has filled out, probably by email. And our secret pal program will begin on May 7th, and I'll send you a little more information about kind of how that works. So the deadline for kids to sign up is today. If we have any, right now we have 5. So that's great because we have 5 adults. But if we have any more children sign up today, then I'll be looking for more adult secret pals. Thank you.
If there are no more announcements, let's prepare for worship and create our sacred space by silencing our cell phones and drawing 3 meditative breaths. Let's hold in our hearts and minds our desire to be a community of liberal and open-minded people who seek to connect lovingly and respectfully with others, both here and in our daily lives. These words are by Sarah Eileen Lawal, Out of the Flames. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with the courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames, we rise.
Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Do you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own yard? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
Please stand in either body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, Do You Hear, number 112. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a sharing community where our joys are celebrated, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. Each Sunday, we take some time to reflect on the special happenings that have occurred this week among our members and friends. Some choose to share aloud, while others choose to remain silent. Here, we make room for both. For those of you who would like to share aloud, please take a moment before we begin to center yourself and collect your thoughts so that what you share this morning is personal, heartfelt, and brief. Please come forward, tell us your name, and share what's in your heart. When you're finished, you may release a stone into the vase on the altar. For those of you who prefer to silently acknowledge what is currently in your hearts, I invite you to come to the altar and release a stone into the vase in silence while Aviva plays. I know this rose will open. After everyone is seated, we invite you to join in singing one verse of the hymn. The words are printed in your order of service. We hold all these things within the heart of this community, both spoken and unspoken, by remaining silent for a moment as we consider what has been shared and how we might respond. May the community respond, Amen, and blessed be.
Amen, and blessed be.
We will sing the children to class, children's blessing, inside the back cover of the hymnal.
This is going to be an audience participation kind of event. There are some of you sprinkled in the audience that have a sheet that looks like this. You have your assignments, you know what to do, sort of. As Jeff said earlier, trust the process. I'm going to be speaking about resistance and fear, and along the way I'll be speaking French, and so the audience members who have the pieces of paper will be translating that French into English loudly so that everybody can hear. And I want you to consider two dimensions of resistance, which is our theme for the month. First is internal resistance. Internal resistance to self-limiting thinking and habits. Resistance that happens within ourselves. And secondly, external resistance. Things that we engage in, resistance to forces that actively threaten the world as we would want it to be. Whether that's personal threats, threats to rights and freedoms, or at a global level to peace and climate security, for example. Along the way, I've been thinking about fear a lot over the past few years, and would like to weave in some questions about how fear shapes my behavior and thinking, and how this relates to one's ability to be a good resistor. To do this, I'm inviting you to join me on a mind journey to France. Are you ready?
Oui.
Okay, allons-y.
Let's go.
That's a good example.
What's
This
happening?
is how this is going to happen. No, you don't go yet. You don't go yet. Yeah, one at a time. So I said, allons-y, and he says,
Let's go.
right. So that's the first one. So wait for the next time that I say something in French. All right. We're there? We good? Okay. The clouds of smoke from the burning piles of tires made it difficult to see in the city. I had heard of the riots, the manifestation, happening in town away from the campus. It was 1982. I was a 19-year-old attending university in a town called Montpellier in the south of France. Tires burned forever, with bright orange flames and thick black smoke curling up and around. Tire fires are very hard to extinguish. The students had strategically placed the piles of tires in the main intersections of the city, blocking the flow of traffic. Throngs of students shouted and marched arm in arm through town. The local police were not able to do a thing. Paint bombs were hurled at the city's préfecture, which is the town hall, turning the otherwise stately white building into a Jackson Pollock. I was excited. This was my first experience traveling outside of the U.S., and it was a long one, for a year. And I was committed to immersing myself in the culture and really understanding how things worked in this new city and new country. I began interviewing protesters on the street. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Pourquoi on se manifeste comme ça?
What's happening? Why are you demonstrating?
To my shock and dismay, the vast majority of the protesters could not answer the question. When I finally got to one or two who may have been organizers, I was told about the new mid-level exams that were being imposed. You see, the students were floating into colleges of dentistry, law, medicine, pharmacy, and so on, and received a government stipend as long as they were students. A free ride, for sure. And to have to pass a qualification exam at the end of the year was just too much for them to take. I was disappointed. I saw massive resistance to an exam requirement leading to the crippling of a city, and what's worse, many of those participating did not even know why they were participating in that resistance. This was definitely not the noble résistance from the 1940s France that it's famous for. This was an outward display of resistance for not so noble reasons. This was external coordinated resistance born of a fear of change, a change to a broken system that was clearly needed. The national police were called in, the tear gas was shot everywhere, and the city was locked down. Exams were eventually held. Oh mon Dieu!
Oh my God.
So let's talk about fear for a moment. Fear is a response we have to threat or loss. Clinical psychologist Amy Marshall notes 4 different types of responses we can have when we feel fear. 1, fight. We engage in physical or verbal altercations or sabotage. 2, flight. We leave. We simply run for our lives. Thirdly, freeze. We stay quiet in an attempt at self-preservation or further perceived danger avoidance. And 4th, fawn. We seek to appease the aggressor in some way, just to reduce the perceived damage that might otherwise occur. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. My suggestion today is that we consider how well those deeply rooted primal reactions we have to fear are serving us when it comes to resistance. Looking back at 1982, my offering to you is that fear of change fed a combative form of resistance that was destructive and not in the best interest of the community. Is it possible that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn may be negatively impacting our ability to be effective resistors? Is it possible that fear of changing from the status quo dimmed the lights of reason and amped up the desire to oppose and fight? Was this good resistance? Surely there's a better example of resistance from France. Let's go back to the early 1940s. La Résistance was a semi-clandestine organization of citizens in France who fought back against the Nazi occupation of France and against the puppet Vichy government that was installed. While only an estimated 2% of the French population were active participants in the Résistance, They disrupted communications, disabled vehicles and power supplies, published underground newspapers, actively fought against the Nazis, and provided critical intelligence to the Allied forces to help win the war. Members of the Resistance were from many backgrounds. Immigrants, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, liberals, anarchists, Catholics, aristocrats, students, communists, and even some fascists. They had every reason to engage in any of the 4 types of fear response mentioned earlier. Fight. Well, they indeed fought, but not for selfish reasons, but in a coordinated fashion. Flight. Many fled if they could, completely understandably. Let's not forget that an estimated 30,000 French citizens were shot by the occupiers as a means of intimidation to not participate in resistance activities. Freeze. Some froze. Remember, only about 2% were active participants in the Resistance. The vast majority had laid low and kept their voices down. Fawn. Some fawned. The Vichy government was comprised of sympathizers and collaborators, people who saw the path of least resistance to accept the Nazi domination of Western Europe. I can't imagine the level of fear the citizens of France lived with. Thinking about the 2 dimensions I mentioned earlier, the internal battle to resist self-limiting thinking and habits in light of the overwhelming forces of German military, it would be understandable to give up and give in. Fear giving way to a sense of powerlessness and loss. How could one resist the internal fear and sense of futility? And for those who could overcome the internal fears and engage, the question was about how to mount an external resistance to the forces that were actively threatening their very lives. What could they do collectively, and how could they do it in a coordinated way? I'll return to the what and how for UUCH later, but from 1940 well into 1944, the Libération, the resistance was pivotal in regaining independence, freedom, and peace in France. 6 years later, from 1982, I returned to the south of France, to Montpellier. I was a graduate student and had taken a post as an assistant director of the very same program I had been on as a junior back in 1982. My job was to help look after 50 American college students in France. What could possibly go wrong? And teach at the university courses in English and American literature and language class. We, and I say we because Allison was with me, we were 2 years into being married. We were terribly excited about the chance to live and work in another country, and it was scary. We didn't know how the systems worked exactly. Like, when would I get my first paycheck? And we had sold a car and got rid of many of the things that we had as graduate students just to go on this adventure, so we had very little to our names. The first day for work came around. I was nervous, as you might imagine, so drove early to get to the campus. I walked to the gate with my satchel full of prepared lessons for the day and was met by my department chair. Bonjour.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Hello.
Mais qu'est-ce que vous faites ici?
But what are you doing here?
Moi? Ah oui, j'ai cours à 8 heures, bâtiment A.
I have a class at 8 a.m. in Building A.
Mais vous ne m'avez pas entendu?
But have you not heard?
Non, quoi?
No what?
Nous sommes en grève.
We're on strike.
En grève!
On strike!
At this point, my mind went back to 1982 and I began imagining all the things I might get involved in. Picketing, locking arms with my fellow academics, and carrying banners through the streets. No, not burning tires, but you get my excitement about the role I was surely to play in this exercise of collective resistance. I asked, Alors, qu'est-ce que je dois faire?
So, what should I do?
I awaited the response with anticipation. Bouf. Aller à la plage, ça va durer une semaine. Who's got it? Yes?
Go to the beach. This is going to last a week.
Okay, pal.
Go to the beach. This is going to last a week.
Thank you. I was crestfallen for sure. thinking that the one legitimate opportunity I had to exercise resistance against some unknown threat to academia was evaporating before my eyes, but the beach. So, another missed opportunity for action on my part, perhaps, but another presented itself very soon. You see, for me to receive a paycheck from the university, I had to have a stamped carte de séjour. I have it around here somewhere. Oh, here we go. I actually found this. This is my carte de séjour from 1988. You can look at that later. I had to have that thing stamped from the local prefecture, the one that was turned into a Jackson Pollock back in 1982. So I took my invitation to work papers from the university, my passport, and all the other pertinent papers to the prefecture. It was a long walk to get there from the university. I arrived, figured out the system of pulling tickets to get a moment with one of the bureaucrats. My number came up and I approached the raised area upon which the bureaucrats and their imposing desks were stationed. It did not go well. Apparently, they had to have a pay stub in order to stamp my carte de séjour. But I said, no, they told me I have to have the stamped carte de séjour before I can get paid. Bof, je suis désolé.
I'm sorry.
Frustrated, I walked back to the university, availed myself of the clerks in the employment office, and was met with equally dismissive, perhaps very French, attitude of je ne peux rien faire.
Well, I can't do anything about it.
Merde. So, I decided to try something different. I had learned some things about French culture. I walked back into town. I stopped at the flower market under the arches. I bought a small bouquet. I went back to the prefecture. What I did next was definitely a reflection of the times. Remember, 1988. I waited to pull a number until I knew I would get a very particular bureaucrat. Let's call her Madame Liberté. When my number came up, I approached Madame Liberté, who peered at me over her glasses, and before anything could be said, I offered, Madame, j'étais au marché aux fleurs et j'ai vu ce bouquet, c'est pour vous.
Madame, I was at the flower market and I saw this bouquet. It's for you.
And to her surprise and delight, I handed her the flowers. Everything changed. Madame Liberté became my champion. She said, what are you doing here in this country? I said, I'm teaching at the university. Oh no, what are you teaching? I'm teaching English and language courses. But where are you from? I'm from the United States. Vous êtes américain? No, come back here. So she took me behind the gate, back into the building, started introducing me to everybody inside the prefecture like I was some kind of rock star. Everything changed. By the end of it all, bam, bam, I had my stamp and I was able to get paid. Vive la résistance! So what have I learned from these experiences? My 19-year-old self saw resistance that was self-serving, destructive, and based on a fear of change that would compel students into discomfort, having to study harder, potentially having to change their plans and get jobs. This was an external manifestation of resistance to change originating from individuals focused only on themselves. I chose not to participate, and granted, it was, as a foreigner, it was an easy choice to make. Questions for us to consider: are there changes afoot or deep-seated issues in our community, in our state, in our country that cause you fear? Are some worth fighting for? Are some not? What will you do? Why will you do it? How will you resist? My 25-year-old self saw resistance born of systemic inertia. In such circumstances, we fear that the mountain is too big, the valley is too low, the river is too wide, and we just give up. We fear we have no agency, no ability to affect the system. We might become cynical, chalking it up to dysfunctional government, losing confidence in our public systems and institutions. I was experiencing the need to gin up some internal resistance to that cynicism and fight back. With the purchase of a bouquet of flowers, I chose to find a workaround based in cultural awareness and kindness, and clearly based in my self-serving need for a solution that would allow me to get paid for my work. Questions for us to consider: are there causes for systemic change that call to you, that call to us as you use, and yet you fear your voice is not enough. What tactics of cultural awareness and kindness might we employ to, yes, solve a problem for ourselves, but also highlight issues to those who are in positions to affect change? This is the what and how point raised earlier. What do we resist collectively? How do we do it? And if you fear that the mountain is too high, let's take a note from Susan Sontag, the American writer, philosopher, and activist. She said, "The likelihood that your acts of resistance cannot stop the injustice does not exempt you from acting in what you sincerely and reflectively hold to be the best interests of your community." Thankfully, UUCH has our solution in the form of our partners that we choose to support each year. We have a local structure for collective resistance right here in Orange County, where you do not have to fear being a lone voice. And that actually impacts systems and institutions. That's called Orange County Justice United. I'm deeply thankful that we are a participating congregation and that OCJU continues to receive our collective support along with the other institutions we have chosen for our faith and action work, OCIM, New Hope Elementary, and the Northern Orange NAACP. And we have managed to create amazing change here, resisting a path of status quo. If you think Amy's mentioned earlier of founding members, ask any one of them how much change they've seen over the years. I bet there's a list, right? Our shift to the Hotchkiss model of governance under Patty's leadership, governance by policy, not by personality. Our amazing response to the pandemic and how we have continued not to just survive but thrive, continuing to provide services and meet our commitments at the state level with our involvement with UU Justice NC. If you're not busy tomorrow, go down there. There's going to be a march, right? Poor People's Campaign tomorrow, 5:30, downtown Raleigh. State level, UU Justice NC, Friday Action Hour is another thing that you can do, acting in concert with your fellow UUs. And at the national level, to be deeply considering Article 2 and the potential addition of an 8th principle, reflective of the new levels of awareness we are reaching as a UU faith community, to stand formally alongside those who have been historically marginalized. And along the way, there have been movements of resistance, perhaps based in some fear, but also based in a need to debate and develop shared understanding. And remember, according to Pew Research, UUs are only about 1% of the faithful in this country, not unlike the people who were in the Résistance in France. I see us as the Résistance fighters working in concert to grow as individuals and as an active faith community and bring our principles into reality. In closing, I'm challenging myself and am inviting you to challenge yourselves with these questions. What will you do? Why will you do it? How will you resist? And I'm suggesting that to be good resistors, we will need to be aware of the role that fear may play in internal resistance we feel, resistance that might limit our thinking and our actions. And once we come to terms with that, deciding what we will resist in order to create a greater good and how we will work with others to achieve those goals is what we're about. Goals reflective of our principles as UUs and of the true noble fighters that reside within each of us. May it be so. Merci.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you, Steve. That was great. Each week, we take a monetary offering to support our social justice work in the community. Is this working? Okay. This support comes in the form of donations. The community partner we're sharing the collection with this month is New Hope Elementary School. You may donate by going online to our website or using the Vanco app on your phone. You also can place cash or a check in the basket. If you write a check, please be so kind as to write the word plate in the memo line. Your generosity to these children is much appreciated.
Avec des clés, je te donne une chanson. Bon petit chien.
Good little dog. Nice.
Wonderful music. Thank you so much. Please join me in the prayer of collective gratitude found in your order of service. For the love that surrounds us every morning, for the friends beside us, and for the generous gifts just received, let us be truly grateful. Please stand in body or spirit as we sing our closing hymn, Answering the Call of Love, in the Teal hymnal, number 1014.
So wherever it says standing on the side of love, the words have been changed by the composer to answering the call of love. Yeah. Somebody want to come up and lead it? Do you know? Do you want to come up and lead it?
I'll try.
Okay. Oh, the mic's not on, sorry. Sorry, let's try that again. The promise of the Spirit
Closing words by Peter Friedrichs. This is called Resistance. Press the tender flesh of your knowing against the steel door of your fear. Stay there, breathing, as its icy skin draws out the heat of your racing heart. Feel its resistance to the yes of your hopes, the imminent expiration of your dreams. You could have avoided this pain. You could have stayed safely cradled, blind in the womb of your ignorance, but in the silence of a moonless night, something called you here to this impenetrable place. At the edge of sleep or death, you heard a sound from beyond this door, a prisoner past all hope of release, tapping his bent spoon against the cell wall that divides you, desperate to be heard and known. This is your life calling, and now, having heard its cry, you have no choice but to find a way through.
Altogether, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, my friends, and blessed be.
Thank you.